It began in early 1988 with curiosity. A quiet computer science student had a simple question: how big is the internet? It came after writing a few hundred lines of code, but the answer would ripple through cyberspace like a virus. In 1988, the internet wasn't what it is today. It was fragile, open, and trusting. No firewalls, no antivirus. Researchers linked machines at universities, government labs, and tech centers easily. Robert Tappan Morris, a graduate student at Cornell, didn't set out to destroy anything. He wanted to measure the reach of the digital world. So he built a worm code that could replicate itself and move silently from one computer to another. A mistake in the worm's code could make it replicate non-stop. This would flood systems in just hours. Within a day, thousands of machines across the U.S. experienced paralysis. Emails failed. Networks crashed. The world saw, for the first time, how a simple digital experiment turned into a nationwide crisis. For the first time, the U.S. government would prosecute someone under a new law for computer crimes. This is the tale of a single line of code. It led to a sudden internet crash and changed cybersecurity forever. Welcome back to Covert Case Histories. In the 1980s, the internet wasn't something most people knew about. It wasn't full of websites, videos, or social media. It was a closed world, used mostly by universities and government researchers. The main network was called ARPANET, funded by the U.S. military. It linked top schools like MIT, Stanford, and Berkeley. This allowed scientists and students to share files and ideas. Many of these systems used Unix, a favored operating system in research settings. Back then, security was almost an afterthought. Everyone using the internet was assumed to be trustworthy. There were no login delays, no firewalls, and no antivirus software. Machines were open to help people collaborate, not to block them. Since there were only a few users who knew each other, no one thought anyone would harm the network. But this openness also meant that the internet was vulnerable. Programs could be shared and executed remotely. Trust files let systems skip password checks. And some software had bugs that no one bothered to fix because no one thought they could be dangerous. That world of trust was about to be shaken. A young man was ready to prove that one curious question could create chaos in a delicate digital world. Robert Tappan Morris wasn't your average student. He was the son of a computer pioneer. His father helped create Unix at Bell Labs. Robert grew up with great computer scientists. He was bright, reserved, and very curious. In 1988, he was a graduate student at Cornell, fascinated by computer networks and how they worked. He had a simple idea. I want to know how big the internet really is. But there was no easy way to find out. He chose to create a program, a worm. This worm would silently copy itself from machine to machine, count them, and then report back. It wasn't meant to harm anything. It wouldn't steal passwords or destroy files. It would just slip in, record a tally, and vanish. To prevent the worm from getting stuck, Morris added a small rule. Even if a computer was infected, there was still a 14% chance it would accept another copy. He thought this would ensure accuracy, but in reality, it caused machines to flood themselves with endless worm copies. The result wasn't a simple head count. It was an internet-wide traffic jam. Morris didn't know it yet, but his name was about to go down in cybercrime history. The Morris worm was small, 99 lines of code written in C programming language, but it was clever. It preyed on several common security holes in Unix systems. First, it exploited a bug in SendMail, a popular email service. The worm would pretend to be a message and trick the server into executing its code. It also used a trust exploit in RSH and RecSec. These programs let computers run remote commands. If two systems trusted each other, the worm could jump without asking for a password. Third, it guessed weak passwords by using brute force. It tried common combinations on its own until it found a match. After the worm got in, it copied itself to the new machine. Then it began scanning for more targets. It was efficient, fast, and silent. But Morris had made a critical mistake. He ensured the worm reinfected a machine every 7th time. This happened even if someone had already infected the machine. This way, system admins faced challenges in stopping it. This led to runaway replication. Infected machines kept reinfecting themselves until they overwhelmed each other. CPU usage shot up. Memory drained. Systems froze. This was not a worm doing reconnaissance anymore. It was behaving like a virus. On November 2, 1988, Robert Tappan Morris released his worm onto the internet. He launched it from a computer at MIT. He picked this place to hide his link to Cornell. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but within hours, the worm began to spread at an alarming rate. It affected Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, NASA, and machines tied to the Department of Defense. In a world with about 60,000 internet-connected computers, the malware hit over 6,000 on day one. That's roughly 10% of the entire internet, taken down by one worm. Users and system administrators blindsided each other. Machines began to slow down at a significant rate. It was not possible to remove the worm. Network traffic surged as reinfected systems tried to spread the worm again. Emails weren't sent. Remote sessions dropped. Universities had to disconnect from the network. This wasn't a targeted attack. It wasn't about stealing money or secrets. It was collateral damage on a massive scale, all because of a flawed line of logic in a worm meant to count computers. A digital plague had crippled the most advanced network infrastructure ever seen, and it wouldn't go unnoticed for long. When news of the worm spread, system admins nationwide panicked. No one had seen anything like it before. There were no protocols, no cybersecurity playbooks. It was digital chaos. At UC Berkeley, researchers Gene Spafford and Clifford Newman studied the worm's code. They examined its methods. It preyed on bugs in SendMail. It also used trust relationships to bypass logins and brute force passwords. They shared this information through mailing lists, phone calls, and faxes, whatever worked. In 48 hours, universities and labs started isolating infected systems. They also disconnected whole subnets to prevent the spread. Others developed patches or worm killers to end the program's processes. Meanwhile, the media jumped in. The New York Times published front-page coverage. TV anchors explained this strange new concept, computer worms, to confused viewers. The U.S. government responded. It was not possible to remove the adverb. This event resulted in the creation of CERT, the Computer Emergency Response Team. For the first time, the Internet had a rapid response task force. But even as the spread slowed, it had already caused damage. The world now realizes that a single coder could crash the Internet, and the hunt for that coder had begun. Despite trying to remain anonymous, Morris left digital footprints. Investigators traced the worm's origins to a machine at MIT, but soon, patterns emerged pointing toward Cornell University. The style of the code, the login timestamps, and the network path all narrowed the trail. Meanwhile, Morris confided in a friend, panicked by the scale of the outbreak. That friend went to a university faculty member, who then alerted the authorities. Within weeks, the FBI was on the case. Before digital forensics, investigators used system logs, network layouts, and word of mouth, but they managed to piece it together. The evidence was clear. Morris was the creator of the worm. On paper, he hadn't meant to cause damage. His goal wasn't theft or espionage, but intent didn't matter. The worm made universities, businesses, and government labs waste many hours and millions of dollars fixing the damage. And someone had to hold someone accountable. In 1989, Robert Tappan Morris faced charges under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The government passed the law 2 years before. His case would become the first ever federal prosecution for a cybercrime in U.S. history. He was about to make headlines again. In January 1990, Robert Tappan Morris stood trial in federal court. The charge? Hacking into secure systems without permission breaks the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Tensions filled the courtroom. We had not charted this territory. No one had ever faced trial for releasing a worm on the internet. The prosecution said that Morris's actions, whether planned or not, paralyzed thousands of machines. This caused huge repair costs. They pointed to the worm's reinfection logic as evidence of recklessness. The defense argued that Morris had no criminal intent. He had built a tool for research. The worm didn't steal data, alter files, or cause permanent damage. It was a programming mistake, not a malicious act. In the end, the court found Morris guilty. He received 3 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, and a $10,050 fine. This sentence was light by today's standards. Still, it sent a clear message. Hacking, even if accidental, has real-world consequences. The trial marked the beginning of U.S. cyber law enforcement. Morris faded from the spotlight for a time. His worm and trial would shape cybersecurity policy and hacker culture for many years. The Morris worm didn't just cause short-term disruption. It changed how people thought about the internet. Software vulnerabilities aren't just tech issues, they also pose risks to national security. The internet, once a niche academic network, was now seen as a potential battleground. Second, it sparked the birth of formal cybersecurity response. The creation of CERT at Carnegie Mellon was a direct reaction to the worm. CERT would go on to become a global model for handling digital threats. Third, the case reshaped laws. The authorities prosecuted Morris under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. This case set a precedent for many future cases. These include cases involving credit card thieves and anonymous hackers. And finally, the Morris worm changed hacker culture. It showed that even good intentions could lead to disaster. It blurred the lines between experimentation and criminal activity. Robert Morris later found success as an entrepreneur and professor. This was an unexpected turn considering his earlier circumstances. He co-founded Y Combinator, the startup incubator behind Dropbox, Reddit, and Airbnb. He moved on, but his name remained etched in cyber history. The worm he wrote was a mistake, but the wake-up call it delivered, that was exactly what the internet needed. Today's internet is much more complex, yet it remains vulnerable. Worms have undergone significant evolution. Now they encrypt data for ransom. They spy through webcams. They infect smart TVs, doorbells, and even cars. Their roots trace back to 1988. A young student asked, "How big is the internet?" Now we live in a world of constant connectivity. Every system is a potential target. Every device could be a doorway. Every programmer has the power to disrupt lives, businesses, and even nations, whether they mean to or not. The Morris worm shows us that code is not neutral. A single line can spiral into chaos. Security isn't an add-on, it's part of the foundation. From Morris to Stuxnet and WannaCry to SolarWinds, the first digital infection still impacts our networks. Every firewall, every patch, every cybersecurity policy has roots in that worm. In 1988, the internet faced its first virus. The world saw that in the digital age, unchecked curiosity can lead to disaster. This is more than history. It's the origin story of the world we live in now. For more fun facts and stories, like and subscribe to the Cybercrime History channel. Thanks for watching.